And what's up, everybody? All right. I had to start make a new Zoom call on my end as we were doing the countdown, so I might be a little off, a little frazzled, all that good stuff. But we are live. Welcome everybody to another Xfinity post race here. And hey, you know what? It didn't end in a horrible wreck. Ended up in a overtime finish, but it was at least a weird race. I don't know how else really to say that. Uh, but yeah, it's honestly it was better than the spring race. I'll give it that. It definitely had a feel like an old Daytona race. Back when they used to have the summer Daytona races, and before the repave, where you'd have those spread out packs, and there were like the 6, 7, 8 good cars, and then you had the kind of mid pack cars, and then you had the field fillers. That's how this race felt, in my opinion, which I think Atlanta is going to reach that at some point. I think you're already seeing the weird hybrid of super speedway and mile and a half. It's really, honestly, it's kind of, it's weird. It's good that it's different, but at the same time, man, I miss old Atlanta still. But this race was the 2023 Allsco Uniforms 250, was 169 nice laps, and went 2 hours, 24 minutes, 31 seconds, with 9 leaders, with 14 lead changes, and 8 cautions on the night. Looking at the finishing order here, John Hunter Nemechek gets the win, kind of snookers him, gets past all the dominant Kaulig cars, gets past Austin Hill, who we'll talk about Hill and his efforts to get the win. I'm questioning, too, why they didn't push him. But Hemrick comes home second, Custer third, then Haley in fourth. Sam Mayer comes up for a top 5 on the night. Then you got Ty Gibbs in 6th, Kyle Sieg up in the 7th spot. After that, you have Parker Kligerman 8th, Josh Williams 9th, didn't have to park his car on the front stretch this time. And Sammy Smith in the 10th spot, then Brett Moffitt 11th. Hill comes back to finish 12th after the spin. Then Jeb Burton in 13th, 14th Gralla, 15th Clements, Retzlaff in 16th, and Allgaier will round out the lead lap drivers in the 17th spot. And then after that, you got Balicki in 18th, a lap down, Barry a lap down in 19th, Chandler Smith finishes a lap down, I believe, after running out of fuel in the 20th spot. Then Joe Graff Jr., 21st, -2, Starr, 22nd, Jeffrey Earnhardt, 23rd, Massey in 24th, Ellis, 25th, Smithley, 26th, Chase, 27th. Then you have Brennan Poole, last car on the track, 28th, -4 laps. Hunter Nixon Fishing, thank you for the 5. I miss old Atlanta too, but I'm a Harvick fan, so I'm biased. Hey, I'm not a Harvick fan. I don't have really any driver I fully pull for at this point anymore. I miss old Atlanta just because I think it had better racing. But you know what? We might not get it back for a while. I saw Dale Jr. tweeting that maybe this hybridization of super speedway and mile and a half may turn into old Atlanta. We can only hope. Because I don't think that unless they nerf these cars to like 200 horsepower in a couple years, that with how worn out it is, they're going to be able to keep the speeds up in the packs to be able to race in a way that NASCAR would want them to like this. Interesting experiment, but I don't think it's going to last as a super speedway much past the initial repave before you get more bumpy. But that's just my thought. I'm not an engineer. I don't know all this stuff. I'm just kind of shooting out my theory of it. Again, very much reminds me of the old truck races at Michigan about 10 years ago, a couple years after the repave there. I think we're going to get the same thing on all levels, truck, Xfinity, and Cup Series. And I didn't mind those. It was a nice mix of them, but I think NASCAR should bite the bullet, up the horsepower, and not make it a super speedway personally. But you know what? We'll see. But Finishing out the running order, all these cars, or drivers, I should say, were out of the race at its conclusion. Ogata in 29th, Maggio 30th, then Weatherman 31st, Perkins 32nd, Brandon Jones 33rd, 34th, Anthony Alfredo, Reed 35th, Ryan Sieg, after a great start to the night, comes home in the 36th spot after being caught up in the big one. Then 37th, Riley Herbst, and Greg Van Alst, unfortunately, comes home in last. I wish the NBC had covered that a bit more, because I think that honestly was something they should have looked more towards. But the running order will be at the top of the screen as we go through the race itself. So let's look into this. By the way, click that like button. Let's get to at least 100 likes on this stream and go from there. Joshua David, I see in the chat saying, yeah, how does a less than 2-year-old track look 5+ years old? Well, I mean, thing is, those hot Georgia summers are going to bake that track up a ton. And then on top of that, you add in that there is a lot of variation in winter, sometimes freezing. And I know from growing up in the Midwest and in the northern states that those winters will do a number on the roads, and hot summers will too. There's a reason Midwestern roads are honestly some of the bumpiest, almost you could say worst in America. Though I know there's probably people that will argue that other ones are. Go through Illinois or Wisconsin roads even 5 to 10 years after they're repaved, and that's what you got. And I think that's what you got with this track. Scott McNew, thank you for the 5. Dang, if only Haley went with Hemrick. Yeah, that would have changed a lot. I mean, there were a couple times where I'm like, I get why these guys, with the moves that they're making and choosing to or to not go with different drivers in the draft. I get why you're an Xfinity guy. Come on, man, make a move, go with somebody. We'll talk about that as well when it comes to Austin Hill, who I believe was just stuck on an island. But you know what, is what it is. Noah Coleman says, I'm an Atlanta native. It gets pretty wild here. Then there's the daily 5 p.m. summer storms. It's true that the variation in weather is going to mess with the pavement a lot, and I think you're going to see it. There's a reason this track got so worn out so quickly. Just look at the previous repavement of this. People will remember, 2005 Atlanta for being a bumpy track with the great finish of Edwards and Johnson. But the thing is with that is that repave, if I'm not mistaken, was only 7 or 8 years old, and it looked like a track that was maybe 12 to 14 years old. So you're going to see advanced aging on this track, in my opinion, and I can't wait to see what the end product is. But looking into the race itself, you had Chandler Smith versus Josh Berry to start. Austin Hill would have to start in the back. He flies up towards the front. If I'm not mistaken, before the first caution, he was 11th already. Obviously had the best car tonight and just never could get the help. His car was too good at times to get the help from other people, and I think that was one of the big issues that he faced in this race. But on lap 28, you have Parker Kligerman spinning from a left rear tire going flat. That would be the first caution of the night. On lap 35, you have the restart, and it ends up with Riley Herbst versus Josh Berry. And while Herbst didn't finish the night very well, he won the first stage with Berry in second, Chandler Smith third, Haley in fourth, Hill in fifth, all the way up to fifth, I should say, in that first stage alone. Then sixth was Allgaier, Clements seventh, eighth was Creed, ninth was Graf, and Retzlaff comes home 10th in stage one. They restart into stage two. And Parker Retzlaff has a slide, I believe, in turn 4. I thought NASCAR jumped the gun on the caution. At the end of the day, it didn't make too much of a difference, but it was a hell of a save. I hope people will remember the great save over the jumping the gun of the caution. But, again, thought it was a little too quick, but it really didn't make that big a difference to me. And then a couple laps later, you have the restart with Creed versus Sieg. This continues for several laps before you have the caution for Greg Van Alst's car, basically just coming apart, unfortunately, which sucks because I was really rooting for him to get at least a solid run out of the night. Ultimately didn't happen. the next restart, Creed gets ahead again, and he's able to basically hold off the pack as Austin Hill is fighting them single-handedly on the bottom, I should say, and just showing that he had the best car. Once Creed gets ahead of him, those two were unstoppable drafting together, giving Creed the victory in stage 2 over Hill in second, then Ryan Sieg, Josh Berry, and Allgaier fifth, then Custer, Hemrick, Chandler Smith, Kligerman, and Sammy Smith rounding out the top 10 in stage 2. Scott, thank you for being a member for 20 months, saying, by the way, Michigan has the worst roads. I've been up in Michigan. It definitely is up there. I'm telling you, Midwest, it's like that. And Atlanta is like a much less, I will say, it is not as cold as the Midwest in the winters. It can get very cold. But those summers on the very opposite end of where the Michigan Midwest roads get torn up, same thing on the hot end with Georgia. But I appreciate you being a member for 20 months. Wow. Thank you. Final stage comes up. You have the restart with Kaulig basically up front. Ty Gibbs has a right front, I believe, go down. But it doesn't really matter as there's a huge one. The big one strikes on the backstretch and involves 10 cars, the 39, the 98, who I believe Herbst had a left rear flat, if I'm not mistaken. I could be. But the 78, 1, 45, 9, 31, 6, 92, and 02 were involved. Most of those cars would end up out of the race due to that. And thank you for all the hearts, by the way. I appreciate it. I love y'all spamming the hearts. But that would change the complexion of the race because a lot of those cars that were making up the big part of the middle pack end up getting taken out in that. You have the leaders and you have the slow cars. There's really not many in between. You have about 8 cars that run away with the lead over the final run as you restart with 55 to go. All the Kaulig cars are working together at this point, and it's clear. I cannot tell you how clear it is watching this. To beat the Kaulig cars, everybody else would have to work together. I don't think it's rocket science personally. But many of the drivers did. Austin Hill was leapfrogging everyone, got up to the second spot, with 37 to go, makes the fatal flaw mistake, trying to make the move for the lead, but nobody went with him because the 2 cars behind him, who were Justin Haley's teammates, were Kaulig cars. They're not going to abandon their teammate. They are very good with working together at these super speedways. Hill gets shuffled back to the 6th spot. At that point, he was going to have to be desperate for every single spot. Nobody would go with him as he's falling back. Again, it was clear if something crazy would have to happen in order for the Kaulig cars to get beat. And like just single-handedly by somebody. And nobody went with them. Over and over again, the 21 would try to make a move, and Nemechek wouldn't go with them, and Custer wouldn't, and they wouldn't go with each other until finally a couple laps to go, 21 goes with them. And from there, it's over unless something happens. And something did happen. As you can tell by the title of this. Before we get into that, thank you to Michael for the 5 gifted memberships. I appreciate that a ton. That's awesome stuff. Awesome. And by the way, lick that like button. Let's try and get to 100 likes by the end of this stream. We got the stream tomorrow. That'll be the Cup post race, and then the NASCAR Weekly Podcast this Wednesday on Eric Estep's channel. By the way, just want to remind you all that we do have the merch store on dailydownforce.com/the Iceberg. So that should be, there's some awesome stuff on there. You should definitely check it out. And then we have the NASCAR Weekly Podcast 400, NWP 400, Tuesday, August 22nd. So figured I'd let you all guys know that before we move on. And before we get to the finish of this race, thank you, Joshua David, for the $10 super chat. I'm a lifelong Michigan resident. The track still surprised me with how much age it showed. Maybe that's just me. Good race, though Austin Hill currently is the best Xfinity Superspeedway driver. I'd agree. Napa Racing Fan 927 in the chat. One Atlanta date is enough. Would you prefer spring or summer's date? I say Trucks Xfinity Cup all on a summer night. I would, as long as Mid-Ohio, I think Mid-Ohio still should have a spot in NASCAR, personally. Uh, but I would prefer the summer date, though it seems like the spring one does put on better racing. When it comes to the summer, you have to have it on a Sunday night, in my opinion. So there is that. And then, Claude, thank you for reminding me. SRX is on this Thursday night and the next 6 Thursdays, so that's going to be really fun. SRX Thursday Night Thunder on ESPN. Good stuff there. But let's get into the final couple laps. So Parker Chase spins with 3 to go. There's no caution. Guys up front are getting desperate because, shocker, the Kaulig cars are good at a super speedway race. So they're getting desperate. People are making moves. And Kligerman ends up getting into the left rear hill. It was completely incidental contact. He didn't even know if he hit him. He did touch him, but again, that's how the air works at these tracks. We've seen everyone from Cup all the way down to the trucks do this at super speedways and ARCA even. So I wouldn't get too awful mad at Kligerman, but this sets up a really weird and wacky finish. And really quick, I just got a text from my brother. For any of you Star Wars fans, apparently my brother is in a Discord chat hanging out with Star Wars Theory, so that's pretty awesome. Way to go, Rao. I like Star Wars Theory. Seems like a pretty cool dude. Eric, thank you for the 5. Haley's excuse is BS. Push until it won't anymore. Pretty disappointing when Haley was just talking about a team win before making that move. Yes. The Kaulig cars get split up, and basically everyone just goes for themselves. John Hunter Nemechek jumps out in front. Cars running out of gas left and right. Nemechek snookers him, gets away with the win. A very odd way to finish this race. But, man, like I said, very odd finish to this. The best cars, I don't think, between the Kaulig cars and Austin Hill and Creed and Sieg, I don't think the best cars won in this. Just poor decision making left and right by these drivers up front. And again, you can tell these are Xfinity guys because we saw in the spring what good decision making did for Brad Keselowski and Joey Logano. So it's a tough way to end this race. I'm glad that it wasn't a complete wreck fest. We had one big wreck, a couple flat tires. Again, those probably need to be addressed by Goodyear. But overall, a pretty clean super speedway race, which I'd be happy with. Jimmy, thank you for the 10. Hi, that was a great race from tonight. Also, did you see that there is going to be bad weather for tomorrow? And do you think the race will still happen tomorrow night? I think it will based on the hourly forecast. It doesn't look, at least, and let me check if it's been amended. But when I looked around 5 o'clock tonight, it didn't look too bad. But again, these pop-up storms in the south, they're very sporadic, and it makes it very difficult to see when. Again, we thought Nashville would be rained out, and honestly, I don't think it ever had any kind of rain, even post-race, out in Lebanon that night. So I don't want to sound the alarm bells just yet. By the way, lick that like button. 25 likes away from 100. I think we can hit it, guys. I know it. I got faith in you. I believe in you. Let's look at it. 40% chance of thunderstorms tomorrow. Again, this is Apple I am looking at, or like the weather app on it. So let me see the precipitation. It has it raining between 9 a.m. and 3 p.m. and then rain coming at around 11. I think we'd be okay. Let me look on AccuWeather as well. I wanna double check all this stuff, but I want to look at what Hampton's weather forecast is. Hampton, Georgia. There we go. And then I'll look at the hourly for this. Because the last thing I want to do is jump the gun and say it's going to... I'm looking at the hourly, and again, everything's looking to kind of subside around 3 to 4 p.m. Now, it's going to be difficult later on because around 9:30 is when they're looking to have that rain come back in town. let me double check. Because I believe these races, at least last year, were 3 hours. So you're kind of gauging it off that. I think we'll get the race in. It's a matter of, 7 p.m. Eastern time. Or if you get there around 9, that's 2 hours in. And looking at last year's race, which I believe was a 400-miler, and as well as this year's race, which was a 400-miler. Let's see what we got. So last year's was 3 hours, 22 minutes for 260 laps. And this year's was 2 hours, 53 minutes. So I would think we're probably racing to lap 200 if the forecast stays in. At that point, I think NASCAR would call it. I don't think that it would be I don't think they'd push it too much because it's supposed to rain a lot into the night. So that would be my guess. As of the forecast now, I think we're looking at them being able to race, though it might get called early. Still, I think it's going to be a highly contested race. I think it's going to be interesting to see what the nighttime conditions do to the Cup cars compared to Xfinity. They have vastly different packages. And you saw, we've seen what they do in the day. Now it's a matter of what they do in the nighttime. But I do think we get the race in. I'm not going to be all doom and gloom just yet. We do get about a 55% chance of storms around 9:30 to 10 o'clock tomorrow night in Atlanta, which means we would be maybe skirting the edge of it. If we have a clean race, I think we can get most of the laps in. But I certainly think we'll be racing tomorrow night with the way the forecast is now. Again, it could change. It was supposed to be storming right now here in Tennessee, and it's just a light drizzle. So there's going to be it's going to be a lot of variable stuff coming. A lot of people saying get that vortex on. I think we're going to be racing past halfway, but I think that the finish is going to be a mystery. No matter what, we'll be live after the race here on this channel. No matter what, like I said. Fred Dog 81 for 5, not understanding the Haley hate. It wasn't the right decision, but he usually is outstanding on super speedways, so I say cut him some slack. I don't know, maybe the chat's hating him a little more. I didn't think I was hating him. I just said that there's poor decision making on all fronts with this race. The way it was, though, Haley should have probably got that win, but didn't shake out that way. I don't mind Nemechek winning. I know some people, I won't say a lot, but I know some people aren't really a fan of Nemechek winning, especially as a Toyota. I don't really mind it. He seems like a pretty cool dude. He was cool the few times I've been able to talk with him. So good for him. It was cool seeing his family all out there and all that. But I don't mind it too much. He definitely had probably the 6th or 7th best car out there, and because of different happenings, he managed to get the win because. So, by the way, 13 likes away. Lick that like button. We can get there. I know we can. I believe in you. We have enough viewers. We can get above there. Again, we are live tomorrow after the race, whether it's rain or completely bone dry. We will be live after the race and on Eric Estep's channel for the NASCAR Weekly Podcast this Wednesday. Again, look at dailydownforce.com for any of the merch. Anything news-wise with it, we have plenty of stuff that's on Daily Downforce you'll love. I should let you guys know that. I keep forgetting to, but it's just, you get the race going and going and going, and you get me talking and talking, and I'm just like, wow, like that, That's going to become a meme. But wow. Jeez, I'm sorry, that is so cool to I gotta let my brother know. That's so cool because both of us love watching Star Wars Theory, and I think that's so cool that he's getting to be with one of his heroes almost. So awesome stuff there. Jonathan, who are the Vikings running backs this season? Alexander Madison. I don't know. It's running back by committee, which I personally like better than having a bell cow. Maybe Kane Wangwu. I don't know. By the way, 4 likes away. 4 likes away to 100. Looking anything else in the chat. Let's see what we got. Some saying Kligerman didn't touch him. If it was very minimal contact, and it was not intentional. It's just the way that the air moves around at these super speedways. There needs to be NASCAR theory. Someone, I mean, that'd be something for someone to bring up. I do a lot of what if, so I guess you could maybe make NASCAR theory with that. It's difficult to do that with sports, because more or less you get a lot of reckless speculation. So, but I mean, if somebody can make it, go for it. Alessandro, Jared, if Suarez misses the playoffs, is it time for Trackhouse to move on? I don't know. It's difficult because this year is honestly, it's been a regression to the mean for a lot of people, both good and maybe bad, I guess, for regression. Good in the sense for some, but I wouldn't say so. Give him one more year. If he misses again, especially if it's off points like it would be this year, I think you got to start reconsidering. But this team has really built itself around Suarez, so I think it would be unfair to take him out just yet, personally. Let's see. Hey, Jarrett, when are you guys going to have Michael Marutz back on the NWP again, since Michael did a live stream on Monday with Darian? Darian, let's see, Michael 4, Darian 3 on iRacing. At some point. We've kind of gotten into a groove of just the four of us, but when there's a time, we'll definitely be getting some guests back on. And thank you guys for getting over 100 likes on the stream. I appreciate it a ton. That's awesome. Let's see. Doubt anybody wants to be teammates with Chastain. He makes it difficult if you're not his teammate, and apparently, based on how Suarez acted at Coda, it's difficult to be his teammate. But what was... Hold on one second. I want to see. Suarez didn't get a points penalty, just a monetary one, if I'm not mistaken. So there was nothing there. It's very difficult to see. It's very difficult, I think, though, if Suarez does miss it 2 years in a row to justify keeping him, especially if Chastain is a championship guy year in and year out like he's looking to be. So that's going to be a very interesting conversation, I think, moving forward. Let's see what else we got. If Hailie Deegan doesn't work out in NASCAR, do you think she has a chance of reviving her career in Lucas Oil off-road competition? She could probably have a vlog channel and be set for a career for a long time. Favorite Star Wars character? That's difficult. I've always loved Han Solo, because what guy doesn't want to be Han Solo? I love Anakin, the way they made him in the Clone Wars. He's good, and I think he's still better than people say, especially in Revenge of the Sith in the movies. But I love Anakin. But I think it's a tie between Ahsoka and Obi-Wan. Love Hondo. It's difficult, man. I mean, yes, there's Vader, but I feel like that's like a cop-out. I don't know. I like a lot of Star Wars characters. As long as it's not the Disney trilogy, I'll watch Star Wars, or Disney Star Wars in general. I won't watch, but Qui-Gon's good. Qui-Gon is okay. If your favorite's Qui-Gon, you're based. I like that. Qui-Gon is a very based response. Let's see what else we got. How many races can NASCAR push to be on big NBC instead of USA in the next deal? IndyCar has 14 races out of 17 on NBC this year. I think it depends. If you push a lot to NBC, they're probably going to push to have some on Peacock. I personally don't like Peacock as a streaming platform. I think it's very janky. So I personally wouldn't have that. But I think that if IMSA and IndyCar can have more races on NBC than NASCAR, the negotiating on NASCAR's part is doing it wrong. I personally think that, and there's no disrespect to either series. It's just when you look at the viewership NASCAR brings in, I don't think there's any reason why there shouldn't be more NBC and Big Fox races, especially with cable dying. FS1 and USA. USA wasn't even in the initial deal, but especially with FS1 not really bringing anything into the table. I think that the way it should go, in my opinion, is big networks and streaming. That's how it should go. You got to have the future and the ones that people will get. A lot of people now are going to antenna again. So that's my take on it. I would say If you could have 25 races on the big channels, a couple on cable and a couple streaming, that'd be the best option. Streaming's going to be a big part of what comes next. There's no way around it. So it's a matter of how you can make the audience as big as possible on all platforms. That's at least me. Out of the 9 main Star Wars movies, which are your favorite and least favorite, and why? My favorite is kind of a tie. Empire obviously is up there, but I love Revenge of the Sith. Grew up with that one. Least favorite, I don't count the Disney trilogy as real Star Wars. Anything aside from Clone Wars and Tales of the Jedi, that's Disney Star Wars, I really don't count in my head canon. So I'll say Attack of the Clones is probably my least favorite of the real Star Wars movies. Sorry, probably gonna piss people off with that, but I just do not like Disney Star Wars. Milton says, what's funny is that NASCAR owns IMSA. Yeah, it is the funny part. I love how this turned into a NASCAR Star Wars hybrid stream. Funny thing is, I actually got to show my girlfriend the Lucas 6, and then I got to show Darian the prequels, which was really fun. No, Disney trilogy doesn't count. I don't count that. That's I think that's just bad fan fiction. I've read the Thrawn trilogy. Don't disrespect my fandom. I've read it. Okay, I did like Rogue One. I can't stand what Kathleen Kennedy has done to Star Wars. I'm sorry. I can't stand it. I'm not even jumping on the bandwagon. What a lot of people say. It's just, it's clear her and a lot of people that run Star Wars outside of maybe Favreau and Filoni don't understand Star Wars. That's not a terrible take at all. If you most people, especially if you look at a lot of the bombing streaming platform shows, I'd say that it's not a hot take at all. Most people aren't looking. What about NBC pairing more with NASCAR and IndyCar doubleheaders? I think both together would draw more interest, both on the track and TV. I think the difficulty is that you have two different ownership bodies wanting to go two different ways. NASCAR, if NASCAR were to do that, they'd probably have to do doubleheaders on more street races or road courses, which could happen. Very much could happen. But it seems like IndyCar will do everything but go to ovals, and I don't think IndyCar wants to be second fiddle all the time to NASCAR. So that's where I think that I think that's where you have the problem. And Dirty Def, yes, I am right. Twitter's not right. I'm right. And Kathleen Kennedy's a real Sith Lord. I think she's more the apprentice to Jar Jar. Jar Jar's a Sith Lord. But I think that's the difficulty of having the doubleheaders, though, with IndyCar is I don't think IndyCar is going to want to play second fiddle all the time. And if you do have doubleheaders, where are you going to have them? Now, I'm somebody who is very biased on this. I say have a doubleheader, NASCAR, IndyCar, Chicagoland, and have, trucks and Xfinity come. I say this, man. I would love this as somebody who went to Chicagoland forever, and I think the racing for all the series would be really good because of the worn-out surface. I say Thursday, bring out ARCA. Friday, bring trucks. Saturday afternoon, Xfinity. Saturday night, IndyCar. And then Sunday afternoon, Cup. That would be my dream weekend. A nice 5-race, 4-day racing extravaganza. Have the Chicagoland race on Cup and IndyCar be prime time NBC or just big NBC. Can maybe have Sunday night on NBC if it's in the summer. Just run wild with it. The more racing, the better. Let's see what else. Who would win, Twitter Threads or Jarrett Lundberg? I'll go me. Michael Kelly Gilliam, thank you for being a member for 4 months. They did it last year on Indy Road Course. Yes, I know. But I don't think that's gonna last. I don't think Indy Road Course doubleheader, I don't think that's gonna last very long, especially if the rumors of the Brickyard 400 coming back are true. and the rumors of a race need to be taken off the schedule for IndyCar, or at least replacing a race with Milwaukee, like I've been hearing about. So I'd say yeah, go. I don't think that's going to last past this year. And I agree with what NR88 said in the chat. As David Land pointed out, the NASCAR and IndyCar fan bases are very different fan bases, especially in person. And I noticed this when I went to the Indy Road Course in 2021. There were people there for the IndyCar race, and they left. They dipped for Xfinity. There was a much different looking crowd on Sunday. So I think it's definitely going to be. Yeah, I definitely think it's gonna be done soon. I don't know, man. I think it's just. I think the experiment, they tried it. I thought it was cool. I think it'd be a better option maybe to do IMSA in Chicago like they're talking about. So, any cool theme parks in Illinois? Not sure, honestly. I'm not. I didn't go really anywhere in Illinois other than out of state. Let's see what else we have. I would like a Sunday doubleheader at Pocono, have IndyCar at 11 and NASCAR 2:30 to 3. I think the difficulty with that is the same thing. They own the different fan bases, but also I don't know if IndyCar would go back to would want to play second fiddle. And then you got to talk about the safety issues too. Let's see what else we got here. Do you think Ty Gibbs will win a cup race this season? Maybe. And Cadillac John is not happy about that. Yes, I guess there are Six Flags. I'm not a roller coaster person. Todd Gilliland, Harrison Burton starting top 10. Harrison Burton's pretty fast at these super speedways, even if he doesn't finish them all. Napa Racing Fan 927. Thank you for being a member for 4 months. NBC doubleheaders, Indy, NASCAR at different tracks. I think you could have them on the same channel doubleheader, like, bill it like IndyCars at Iowa and NASCAR's at Richmond, watch them back to back kind of thing. But I just think in person, I think it's too difficult. And plus, one of the series has to play second fiddle, and they are competing series after all. Let's finish off. Any last points anyone wants to get here? And we'll end it off in the night. We'll be back tomorrow, no matter what time the race ends. Well, let's see. Will an SHR car that's not Harvick make the playoffs? I don't think so. But crazy things can happen at road courses and super speedways. Let's see. If Chase Elliott does not win or point his way in the playoffs, how bad would this season make him look? Depends how many points he would miss out if he were still trying on points. If he missed out by like 20 or less points, I think it'd look really awful after that suspension for the dumbass move he did with Hamlin, basically throwing 2 races away. If it's more than that, though, or if a lot of people win, I don't think it'd be too bad of a look just because he was out with injury. But I think he's pointing his way in. I think Chase Elliott makes it this year, even if he doesn't win. He's been, I believe, when it comes to points per race, he's up there with a lot of different drivers who are high up. And so I'm not going to count him out until he's out after Daytona. Yeah, don't bring up the 08 Brickyard 400. Yikes. 41 at Loudon, maybe. You got to beat Bell. That's the issue. Bell, that is Bell's playground, in my opinion. But he'll be an underdog. He might be my underdog pick for that one. Any last bit, and then we'll head out. Jarrett, will this be Kyle Busch's championship year since he already got 3 wins this season? I don't know about championship just yet, but I think he'll be in contention. And do you think that Richard Childress will pull a Richard Petty while driving the 29 car? If you mean staying out, probably not, but I would love if he did. And then last bit here, do you think Corey LaJoie wins? Oh, well, it's been retracted. I think he could win. I'll just say I'll put $5 on him, make a little money off it. But I think that'll do it. I appreciate everybody coming in for a late night stream. I got some work to do now. Fun stuff you'll see in the future. But thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you tomorrow night. So Have a good night. Later.